I would like for you to determine the right number of photos to show in Facebook Newsfeed when someone shares a photo album. Hey everyone, I'm Kevin Wei. I'm a product manager at IBM Data and AI. And today we have a mock PM interview with Michael, the coach. And before we jump into today's question, Michael, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, hey, I'm super excited to be here. So I'm currently at Microsoft. I have been at Microsoft for 4 years. I worked on Skype for consumer. I worked on Microsoft Teams. And after that, I kind of moved on more to the conversational AI space. So I'm now working on Power Virtual Agents, which is a platform, a SaaS platform for anyone to build bots. And what we are really focusing on is making it super simple so that you don't have to have any coding skills to build bots. And yeah, so I'm excited to be in the team there.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you. Today, we're going to be doing an execution type question. I would like for you to determine the right number of photos to show in Facebook Newsfeed when someone shares a photo album.
Got it. Okay. So if I remember correctly, like today I think you show 4 pictures, right? It's in Facebook. There's like one main one, and then there's 3 smaller ones below with like a small plus sign to see how many more pictures there are.
Yes, that's the current state.
Got it. And are we talking about mobile or desktop or both?
I leave that decision up to you, and let me know why you think that's what we should focus on.
Okay. I think I will look into mobile first. I think it's just because the usage on mobile is, I assume, Facebook is higher nowadays than desktop. So I think that's kind of where we could get bigger returns from the investment that we are doing.
Sounds good.
All right, and then so we are talking only about cases when the person posts more than 4 pictures, right? I assume.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. So yeah, just the way how, just to recap kind of a little bit, I think the way how it works today, as I mentioned, you post a photo album with, let's say, 20 pictures, right? And it shows you 4 right there, with 1 large one and 3 smaller ones. I believe the hypothesis behind the current design is that the large photo kind of gives you a insight into what is or more like a taste of what is the photos are like. And then the smaller ones is it's both like a indication that there is more pictures in the album. And at the same time, it is kind of giving the idea of high level overview of what the other pictures look like in the album. So that would be my guess as to the current design. So makes sense. So the way how I'm thinking about answering this question, right, is to think through who are the users of this feature, who would interact with this feature. I will then think about what are the goals of this feature, what is it actually trying to accomplish, and how does it perhaps relate to the Facebook's mission in terms of the feature affordances and what it can do. And then I will talk about, hey, how can we set up our experimentation for getting more data on what would be the right number, because I don't think I can provide like an exact number, right, as to what is the right number of pictures. But I think it makes sense to run some experimentation, so maybe test to see what the real world data will give us back as an answer. Does this sound good?
Yeah, the structure sounds good.
All right. Yeah, so let me just give me a brief moment to think about the users, and then I will talk about them. So I think, on the highest level, there is 2 types of users. One is the creator, and the other one would be the consumer. So creator is someone who creates the posts and uploads the album. It could be, and we can probably break it down even further. Like it could be an individual, or it could be like me, like a family, member who have friends on Facebook and family. The other one could be like a business type of user. So I am I don't know, Adidas or Nike, and I want to post my new collection, and I want to make sure that people see all the cool new shoes that I released, right? And so when I think about these two creator types, as we kind of mentioned them, the goals are probably similar. Even though there are two distinct user groups, I think we can the goals are similar in the way they post the album because they want people to take a look at, what I have to offer, whether that's my photos from my vacation, or whether that's pictures from my latest collection of shoes. So I think the goals there would be similar. And then, so the other group of users that I mentioned would be the consumers. So people who view the post. And these people, I think we don't really have to break them down further. Those are folks who are, scrolling through Newsfeed, and they want to see posts that give them the highest value, right? Whether that's information, whether that's entertainment. And they just want to know whether that post or the album that they see is worth their time. Like whether they're, it gives them some value if they see all the pictures, and or they just can scroll past through it. So yeah, just to kind of recap, right? I think we can just break it down into creator and consumer in terms of users. And those two groups I would kind of focus on when optimizing this feature.
Okay.
That makes sense. Okay, and so I think now I would just think through about what are the goals of the feature. So why does this feature exist in the first place, and what might we want to optimize for when we look at the different number of pictures in that post. So just give me a second. I will think through the metrics, and then I will discuss. Okay, so I think there could be three main kind of metrics that I'm thinking about. So first, and that's could be we could also define it as a funnel, a sort of funnel of the user. So the first step would be, how much time do people spend on just looking at the post? So when you scroll through the timeline, do I pause on the picture for 1 second or 10 seconds? The second step or metric that I will look at is how many people click through to see more of the pictures or all the pictures from the album. And third would be what is the active engagement on this post. And what I mean by active engagement is comments or reactions to the post. And it could be either on the main post, I think, like, when you just the main post, and or the individual pictures, because I think at Facebook you can kind of do both. So those are the three metrics I would look at. And then when I think, right, like how does it combine, or how does it work with Facebook's mission? I think what really we want to optimize for, because Facebook's mission is to connect people and build communities, is really the third metric, which is the engagement, which allows us to kind of build that two-way street of when the people, because when I post a album, right, as a creator, I want to connect with people, right? No matter whether I'm a business user or an individual. And I think that, the comment or the reaction from the folks who are scrolling through their timelines is giving me the most value, right? As an individual, it's just giving me, connection with my old friends, and I can maybe reach out back to them. Or as a business user, it just gives me some signal that, hey, people like these shoes, etc. So I think that's what I really would focus on the third metric, kind of optimizing that. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Okay. So yeah, I think now we are clear kind of on, hey, these are the users who are impacted. These are kind of the metrics that we are trying to optimize with this experiment. So the next logical steps to me is, hey, we should set up an experimentation for how can we figure out what is kind of the right number of pictures. I would just go with A/B test on which I would launch like globally on a scale, because I think that's the best data that we can get, and Facebook has the scale to get statistically significant data very quickly, just because of the amount of users that are using it. So I think that would be just like a better approach than doing a focus group or some user study. So let me the way how we would design. Let me just take some time to think through how would I design that experimentation. And I will walk you through kind of what I would do as the next steps. Okay, so I think I would actually do like a ABC test, not just an A/B test. And what I mean by that, so what I would want to try is, hey, okay, today we are posting 4 pictures, right? Now there is probably a reason for that, and it has been that for a while. So what I would try to do is have that as a control and kind of see, okay, this is what we have today. And then I would set up one group, which would be, what are the extremes? And kind of, I would like to try to see the extremes, like, hey, what if we show just one picture? Or what if we show like a grid of 9 by 9 pictures in the newsfeed, in the post? And the reason, and then based on the results, right, I would be able to kind of triangulate further as to, hey, if I see good engagement on option 1, then I would, like with the one picture, maybe it makes sense to like move towards this design. And I could maybe try then like 2 pictures or 3 pictures and see how does that work. And similarly, like if I saw that, hey, the 9 picture, the 3 by 3 grid works really great, but it's missing on some metrics, maybe I would move towards that. So the way how we would kind of design it, right, as I said, it would be ABC. The C group would be the control, and then A would be single picture, B would be 3 by 3 grid, 9 pictures. So what I mean by that is, just give me a sec, I will do a little kind of drawing of what I mean. So let's see if I can do this. So today that's the current design, as I understand it. Kind of the one main picture, and then you have 3 smaller ones, and the last one has like a plus here. What I would try like a second is the A group is like, hey, I would do this single image with perhaps a little plus down here indicating there is more pictures. This is kind of like Instagram style, right? So we could kind of work out, hey, what should be the exact designs? Like, should it be arrows, etc. But we can just launch kind of to get the initial feedback and see how that works. And then lastly, I would see the 3 by 3 grid. So all the pictures would be the same size. It would be, it would kind of give a gallery view, like the Brady Branch kind of style, like what Zoom calls do. And then the users would be able to, click on any of these to kind of get a zoomed in view, or they would be able just to click kind of the plus, similar to in the current treatment, to see all the posts in that album and kind of expand that.
So in the B test, would it always be 3 by 3, or might it be 4 by 4 or 5 by 5 if there were more pictures?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for the initial runs of tests, I would just do it 3 by 3. I feel like the images will be already pretty small, and like if we do, especially on mobile, if we do 4 by 4, it would be just like a little mosaic. So that's just my initial feeling. But I think we could just test it out, as we go.
Okay, and you say that you want to run this as a global test?
Yeah, I think I would. I don't think there is any reason why we shouldn't run this as a global test. It would be interesting, right? So once we launch this test, let's say we launch this test, right? Where we have the control use 60% of the current traffic, and then we do 20% for each of the A and B group, where we could gather the data on what is the effectiveness. And I would specifically look at the three metrics, right, that I mentioned, right? I would look at, hey, what is the time on the post? What is the click-through? And what is the engagement on the pictures, meaning the comments and reactions? And just kind of validate if that makes sense. Like if any of these metrics, how do they move along these metrics? And given the scale of Facebook, I think we would be able, if we wanted to, we would be further able to slice this data by geography or by gender, or I don't know if any other kind of, or age, or kind of any other demographic information that would give us more insight. But I think we can run it as a global test, yes.
The reason that I brought that up was that if we may have users who are used to seeing things differently in different regions. For example, users in America might be used to Instagram, where you can scroll kind of like a carousel, one image at a time. But then maybe users in Japan, they're used to using an app, for example, like Line, where maybe the way they do it is a mosaic or like a Zoom call, like the 9x9. So are you saying that initially we'll just take this data and then we can segment it later?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was thinking that because if given the scale, right, if we launch it to 20% of, let's say, Japan, right, that you mentioned, or US, we might see significant differences. Like even with this data, we might be able to get statistically significant difference between these two regions. And we could do that on the resulting data that we receive back.
Okay, so you said you want to run this experiment and you want to see how the engagement is, the likes, the shares, the reactions, the comments, and then you
exactly.
want to triangulate towards an optimal solution. So let's say the results come back and the engagement is better for the 9x9. So the engagement is better, but the click-through rate is not where we want it to be. So what would you do here?
Yeah, so I would, in that case, right, as I mentioned at the beginning, I think the engagement rate is what we really want to optimize for, because that's what is enabling the Facebook's mission of connecting people and creating, because communication and connecting people is a two-way street, right? And so I would take that as an encouraging sign. I wouldn't like right away switch to the 9x9 metrics, right? What I think we can do is maybe take a look at why is the click-through rate not as high, and in this case, right? Maybe it makes sense at this point to run a user study, and also to so meaning like actual focus group, right? They get people in and kind of talk through, because we can get some qualitative insight as to why is it not faring as well as we want. And to the earlier discussion that we have, right, is also I would definitely also take a look at across the different geographies. Like, is this true for all the geos, right? Like, is it true only for US? Is it true for Japan? Which I think would give us additional insight rather than just looking at the data as an aggregate.
Okay. That sounds good. That sounds good. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I guess just to sum up a little bit, like what we talked through. So the way how we optimize or find out what is the right number is kind of set the goal, with the engagement being the number one goal of optimizing. I would then run a global ABC test. I would focus on mobile, as I mentioned at the beginning, and then if I receive the results back, right, like you mentioned, for example, when the engagement is higher, but the click-through rate is lower, I think at that point it makes sense to drill down more into the data, see if there are any patterns in terms of countries, etc., or some other user types, and as well as conduct some additional focus groups to actually figure out the details.
Okay. And as an exercise, what would you do if it was the other way around? If the engagement was lower, but the click-through rate was higher?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I would also look at what the other version did, right? I mean, if I ran two tests, so I would also look at, hey, what the single image did. Like, is it the same, right? Like, is the signals same or is it different? Because then we could triangulate on a better number, right? For example, if we see that, hey, click-through rate is worse for the 9x9. No, sorry, what was that? Right? It was click-through rate is better.
Click-through rate was higher, but the engagement was lower. So maybe this tells you the user clicks in but doesn't like what they're seeing, or maybe something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think the way to solve it would be similar, right, to the process that I described. Like we could then do a more of a like slicing the data, see if there is a pattern overall, or just conduct a study to see like why are people not reacting to the post.
Okay, cool. So thanks for that. And before I give my feedback, looking back, would love to hear your self-reflection on how you think this mock interview went.
Yeah, I think one thing that I think I could have done better is in the clarifying questions at the beginning, ask more about the post type. Because I didn't clarify, like, hey, can we actually like change the size of the post, or can we, change that? Then it would give me some other ideas, like, hey, maybe we can just show all the pictures back together. So I was working with more of a constraint and an assumption that I made in my head, and so I think I really should have taken more time to kind of think through the clarifying questions a bit more, so that I don't go through the wrong route. I hope I didn't go totally off the route, right? But that's something that jumped out at me. Then I think also second, in terms of the metrics, maybe I should have focused also more on the sharing aspect. Maybe that could have been a good fourth metric to look at as a very important kind of part of the achieving or optimizing this feature.
Yeah, you did not call out sharing, so I kind of threw it in there just to.
I know, yes.
Yeah. But
I grasped at the straw.
But I like the overall structure. I liked how you picked mobile because there is more usage there now. Maybe not so much during COVID because more people are stuck at home, they're on the computer. But I think in general, like, yes, mobile, the hypothesis there is good. I like how you broke down the creator to individuals like me and you and businesses like Adidas. Maybe the use case for influencers might be a little bit different. So if you think about Kim Kardashian or celebrities, maybe their use case is different. Maybe they're, it's kind of in the middle, right? They are an individual, but they have the goals of a business. And then I think we talked about the global A/B test, and I gave my feedback about maybe the user behavior might be different in regions like Western area where they're used to seeing photos one way versus maybe Asia, they're used to seeing it another way. That might be something to think about. Overall, though, I really liked how you also stopped and checked in with me. That's very important, just to make sure that the interviewer is on the same page. And the last feedback that I have is maybe consider what if there are videos in the album. Maybe the behavior would be the same. Maybe you would still consider exploring the extremes, showing one and then showing the 9x9 grid. But
that's a good question. I wonder how I actually I haven't considered that. So I wonder how that even works today, right? That would be, I think that might change some of the parameters of the experimentation. Yeah, so that's a very good point.
Yeah, I think right now it's the current state, I believe, is still where they would just mix it in with everything else, with all the photos, and then the videos would appear alongside the one big one and then the three smaller ones. But yeah, thanks again for being on today's show. Super valuable. And for the viewers, if you have a different approach to this question, leave a note in the comments. Would love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck on your upcoming PM interview.